gang, here we are again. Another great episode on the Main Street Randyland YouTube channel. Hooray, hooray. Well, where am I now? Well, I was looking over some used cars. And I was trying to figure, what would be good in my garage or in my driveway. But, it's a little too high right now. I got to wait a few years for it to go down. That price tag, that sticker shock, I have to stick with, the old Corvette or something of this nature. What are you going to do? But, you get in the car sometimes and you take a ride. You're on a little bit of a field trip journey. So I'm actually out here far, far away from home. I'm in Oaks, Pennsylvania. Yeah, it's like, why would you go to Oaks, Pennsylvania? Because I went to see something very special that a lot of people have recommended to me on the internet. And it's right over here. It is the American Treasure Tour Museum. Can you imagine? Now, I've heard some really great stuff about this, that this is a museum filled with stuff. And if there's anything that we like, it's stuff. Because stuff is what it's all about. If you have the most stuff, that's what it's what it, and they even have a tram that's going through for a little tour to see the stuff. So this is a guy after my own heart. Supposedly, this is an old Firestone factory. Can you imagine that, where they made your tires? Well, I would say it's a good purpose that they changed it into the American Treasure Tour Museum. I wish I had a building that big that I could get all my stuff out. I can see that, I'm going to love this. I haven't seen it yet other than what I see online, and it looks pretty neat. So, maybe somebody's got an old Firestone building for me somewhere. I'd even take a Goodyear building. I'm not picky. As long as it has hundreds and hundreds of thousands of square feet where I can set up all my stuff. Can you imagine how great that would be? We could do my tours on the omnibuses. We could drive the omnibuses on the tours, and you could be on the second level looking down. What could be greater than that? Well, we shall see. Let's go on inside and see what we find. This reminds me of the Twilight Zone episode where the guy's in the museum and he's looking in the windows and he sees the little lady in there and he's in love with her, and eventually he becomes part of the diorama. And I love this theater, complete with the little organ player. Look at that. I wonder what's on that tape. Ragtime, blues, Nickelodeon. We have a projector like that. That was our normal projector. And a slide projector like that too. I probably had all these cameras. My mom used to play the accordion. Did you know that? And I remember when we were little kids and she would get enthused and drag out this big case with the accordion, and me and my sister would look at each other like, oh no, here we go. And she'd be playing the accordion. She was pretty good at it. Oh, how wonderful. And coin operated, no less. Only a nickel. The harp is a very underrated instrument. I wonder why they're bent like that. I guess from the punching. It'll flatten out as it goes through, but it's interesting. I never realized that they were bent. See, now this one's flat. That's what I would have expected. I have the little green sprout. I have several Mickeys. I have a Firebox phone. I have a Kermit phone, but it's different style for that. I have a Keyboardy Elf phone. I don't have a Pluto phone. We used to have a lot of prizes like this in Fascination, in Seaside, Lucky's Fascination. I had a lot of novelty phones like that. Don't you love dials? Do you remember the old phone numbers of when you were a kid? I remember ours. 201-379-2806. That was our house in Short Hills. 201-622-2322 was my dad's law office in Newark. 609-793-3319. That was the house in Lavalette. Love it. Wonderful. I almost bought a switchboard, but I missed out on it. So I don't have a switchboard, but I do have the automatic controlling stations that would automatically take the dials and connect your phones without having a switchboard. But look at this, it's an extension. It's plugged in here and it goes up to other extensions, so you could probably get more than one on a party line. Candlestick phones. That's an office intercom where the guy on the desk would hold down the lever to speak to a certain office, and he'd say, hey, Joni, come on in here and take some dictation. The phone is really very underrated. There's so many great phones and memories that are tied to phones. My sister used to be constantly on the phone. Over here, cordless phones. You know, I made the first cordless phone. I was still in grammar school because I had a wall phone in black. It was from Europe, so it was a little different styled. And it was on my wall above my bed. And it had a wire that was not this long. It was like this long. That's the standard wire. And I'd constantly be on the phone with my grandmother. We would talk for hours. Well, you couldn't do anything while you're on the phone. You try to stretch the wire out as long as you could. So I figured I gotta free myself from this wire. So I built a transmitter on an old headset for headphones, and I put the wiring in the top with a 9-volt battery. You can click it on, and I had a piece of phone wire coming down with an open microphone just soldered on the end of it with a little glue so I could speak like an operator. And it was actually 2 frequencies. The one frequency would transmit to my old reel-to-reel tape recorder, which had a built-in AM radio, and that was attached to my wall telephone. And then also the wall telephone was connected to a transmitter that would transmit on a different frequency to my headset radio where I could hear. And I would walk around the house and I would be able to talk on the telephone. There were no cordless phones. There was certainly no cell phones. It was unheard of. And I would have friends come over from school and I'd say, you want to see my telephone? And you couldn't answer the phone from there. You'd have to actually answer the phone and take the phone off the receiver, then turn yours on and turn on the tape recorder system for the amplification, and you could talk over the telephone. You could also put it through the speakers or on the wall where you could listen to the tape playing on the wall. You could send it through there and you could hear like a speakerphone of them talking, and I could talk back through the microphone. Gosh, that's got to be 1970, 69, 70. Now you'll notice on phone booths, the sides are not always finished because they're usually in banks and rows. So is this unfinished here also? So this would be lined up with other phone booths going along the line, or built into a wall. I'm getting this whole Lurch and Addams Family feeling here. This looks just like a harpsichord. I love the animated bird cage, look at that. Old radios, you know, there's really people who are really into these old radios. I mean, we have a few, but there's people who are just in love with these Art Deco old radios. Who remembers playing the auto harp? We did that in grammar school. I don't remember the keys being like this. I remember the keys being more like piano keys going across. Maybe my memory isn't right. Maybe they made them in different ways. And somewhere in the Randy archives, I have an auto harp. This reminds me of Miniature World. We used to have these little houses as prizes and fascination. I like the little popcorn guy here. Little balls inside. I would have thought this was a kiddie ride in an arcade, but no, sure enough. Can you imagine, this is what they were simulating to teach our guys up in World War II to fly around in. And you know what I think of? I think of the air show that they want to bring to Wildwood, where they're gonna fly around these old planes. No way. How could you listen to everybody at the same time?
They probably have headphone jacks.
And look at this. This is probably the teacher's console where you can turn on whatever station you want and listen to them. I love it. Good old analog ingenuity. It's huge. It's Art Deco. This reminds me of Radio City Music Hall type of thing back in the day. 1930, love it. It's a dance hall organ. I can understand that. Now, for those of you who have a little smaller dance hall, we have a little smaller one. Ah, the double violin player. Look at that. Now, again, this looks more modern to me. It's certainly, you know, done over with some Formica. 1915, so they must have just reconditioned the outside of it, because it's got Formica shells in there. but it's certainly beautiful. You know what's neat about this? This is not a roll. It just pushes the paper up into the mess and it pulls it out down here. So it's continuous, keeps pushing it in, and it pulls it out up here, and eventually it pushes all the way down. And another interesting thing, you can see the way the double bellows works. Now, Marianne and the other band organs I have the bellows systems, but you see how they're opposite. One bellow's pushing while the other bellow's breathing. Push, 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 so that there's always a constant air pressure because it's one or the other that's coming through for flaps. Putting on the bits. I still have my kitty car. I had a little red fire engine. My sister had a blue one that was a car like this, but mine was red. And there's the Ark of the Covenant. Now you're getting in my style, kid. You're getting in my style. Charlie Chaplin, yes sir. The Penny Arcade. Uh-oh, look. They made it a nickel. Outrageous. For men only, you mean they had degenerates back then too? What's going on? Amazing. You know, I had one when I was a kid. You know, the gas powered, they were a little smaller than these. And you had the double string that you had to tilt back and forth and get it to start with the little glow plug, and it would always hit your finger and hurt. You could never start them. And after you finally got it running, you'd go around one time because you're not any good at it, you nosedive it and crash it, and the thing blows up. It's kind of small. I never realized they were that small. This is like what I would consider a golf cart. Look, Mickey's got to stick his face in everything. Mickey, Minnie, and Goofy. When I was a kid, I always called this golf. I could never understand why they put a U there instead of an O. I mean, it's golf. Well, so far, it's a very impressive collection of stuff. I love stuff, you know that, and we all do. It's a lot of beautiful antique cars and music machines and dioramas and ceramics, but I haven't seen a lot of arcade games yet. We saw that crank machine, which is nice. We saw the Nickelodeon where we play music for a nickel, but I haven't seen real arcade games. So my collection could fit very well with this. It could be an even bigger exhibit. Gotta be Chuck E. Cheese. And we got a trash can type of jukebox. Really nice stuff they had back then. The problem with older machines is the degrading. The plastic here has actually melted out from heat. I mean, you could try to have that restored. It would be very difficult. I would leave it alone just like he did. But unfortunately, time is not our friend, and plastics were not made the same way back then as they are today. Now, this is your typical 70s jukebox. God, I gotta have 60 of those types. What am I ever gonna do with them? You know, one thing I never picked up, was a barber pole. I don't have a barber pole. For some reason, I never like to go to the barber. These guys are very realistic, aren't they? X-ray? It looks like an X-ray machine for a dentist. Can you imagine the amount of radiation dosage you got from that? I have a barber chair. I have a gynecological chair also. I had a dentist chair. People, I remember when one of my friends from grammar school, from kindergarten, Nancy Mullen, we're talking about you. She came over one time to visit at the house, and I showed her my gynecological chair. And she was like, why do you have a gynecological chair complete with stirrups? I don't know, doesn't everybody? These were big on the boardwalk for a while. Several stores carried collectibles of these cars, and they're really nice. They're die-cast and they're made to very, very, big detail. And one of the stores from Flipper's Fascination, just a few doors down, had a whole wall of these, and they used to sell them like mad. It was really amazing. And as nice as they are, I only bought one from the guy, and it was a 1960 Pontiac Grand Catalina Safari in red, just like the one I got from my childhood, and it's over in Woolworths today.
Thank you.
She's gonna get my ticket. You mean I can't keep my ticket?
You can get another one later after the tour.
Oh, okay. Ah! Watch the tram car, please.
This area of the museum we call the Toy Box, and you are about to view a collection amassed by one man who wishes to remain anonymous. We honor that request, as he wants the items collected to be the stars of the show. His passion has brought together one of the world's largest collections of pop culture from the 1870s to present day. The collection is constantly evolving, and we like to say there is always room for more.
So hang around and enjoy the pizza. Don't go away, folks. We'll be back in a few minutes. We're taking what they're giving because we're working for a living.
We take this opportunity to thank you for visiting the American Treasure Tour Museum.
Well, we just finished the wonderful tour on the tram at the Grand American Tour Tram. And you know what? The American Treasure Tour Museum is really wonderful, and it reminds me very much of what I've been trying to do. They had a lot more dolls and figurines and toys of that nature, but they captured the American spirit, which was of people and what we experienced and what we collected. We rode in a tram like this. I mean, I would picture it with the omnibuses, but with the height of the ceiling, it never would have worked. We'd need a much taller building in order to do it with omnibuses. But it was really an amazing recommendation that I'm going to give it for this place. So you should come see it yourself here in Oaks, Pennsylvania. A wonderful American Treasure Tour Museum. Lots of music machines, band organs. I had to laugh because the 153 model, like Marianne, was playing the same exact role that Marianne plays in the arcade. I recognized it right away as soon as the songs went. It was one song, then right into the next song, exactly the same. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. And as I said earlier, with music machines, the downside is you can't play them all at the same time. You can play a few. But one thing that's really, really inspirational to me personally is that unlike what I have to do, where I have to keep everything running for actual people playing it, very few things actually were running inside. It's more of an exhibit museum to see the things. They had different, store animatronics that were running with a motor going back and forth, and I'm sure they turn them off when the trams aren't going through so they're not wearing them out. But even the band organs, they would run only for a little bit of time during the time when the tram was going through. It's not an everyday run like I have to do in the Retro Arcade or the Fascination. So with the huge museum that I want to do with Randyland, it would be impractical for me to have everything running because there would be never-ending repairs and doing everything. But they had a little It looked like it was connected to an iPhone on her tram, and as she was going through, she had a menu, which I was watching, that she could remotely start different things. When we played different band organs, she pressed the button, and then the band organ would play, they would go to the next stage. So she probably had a huge list going down the line in order to coordinate it with the taped announcement that was going on the tram. The tram, I'd say, was about 40 minutes. That was a nice little ride. It was very smooth, it was very pleasant. And I can see real possibilities for doing something very much like that in the giant world of Randyland, if I ever get enough square footage to do it. And I can bring out all my toys and things of that nature too to go along with it, because people seem to love that stuff. And it's not just arcade machines, it's life that we all lived and experienced and grew up through. So with that, I'm gonna say we're gonna go, because we got a long ride home from Oaks, Pennsylvania, but you should come out and see the American Treasure Tour Museum right here. It's well worth the trip. And with that, we'll say, see you next time from the Main Street Randyland YouTube channel. Bye, guys.